Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another interview on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee, and of course, with me is Milly.
Hi.
And joining us once again, we have Tristin Cole.
Hi guys, nice to see you again.
That is amazing. So, people will, of course, remember you from the part one that we did with Joe Sictor. I think that was part of our December schedule, which feels like a while ago now, although it isn't really that long ago. It's just such an amazing time. So, how have you been since that? And thank you and welcome back to the show.
Time's been flying by. I don't know, it just seems to be speeding up.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy.
but things have been good. Things have been a little challenging. I've had some family stuff going on, but everything's working out well now. So it was just January was a little crazy, but things are
Oh
getting back to
gosh,
normal
yeah.
now.
January is it is honestly, I think if I were to put like all the months in a tier list together, January would be like at the bottom tier always. It's just
Right?
it's just crazy. But I think that's why I'm really glad that we're here
Yeah,
during this
lighten
time
things
to be able to
up.
oh yeah, and of course to talk about Scooby, which always does give us some cheer. So thank you so much for that. And as because this is the time that we're speaking to you more or less one on one, to get into the background of your career, just looking through IMDb, although that's not always accurate, it says that your career began in 1996 or thereabouts. But before that point, what led you into the path of going into animation?
Well, I grew up painting and drawing. You know, my dad worked at Hanna-Barbera since 1980, so I guess I was like 5 years old, you know, and it was the perfect time for me to like. I was watching cartoons and he was making cartoons, and so it was always very interesting to me. I would rush home and try to catch some of the shows that he worked on so I could see his credits go by. And um, yeah, and then like I was going to college to be a marine biologist, and I just kept gravitating towards the art aspect of it. I was painting murals. I'm a big fan of gray whales, the California gray whales, and I would paint these like murals with gray whales like around town. and uh, and my dad was like, take more art classes, take more art classes. So started just kind of taking more art classes and really loving that. I didn't really have anybody to talk to about marine biology, but I had a good resource for animation and stuff like that. So when I was about 20 years old, he was like, come for an interview at Warner Brothers and there's an opening. And so I went and interviewed and got a job there, got hired as a producer's assistant. So I was just doing like kind of like background, you know, not artwork, just like all the stuff that they needed to do to get the storyboards ready and, you know, all the behind the scenes production work for Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. And I'd be sitting at my desk though, like sometimes when it was quiet, working on backgrounds, like painting backgrounds. I had a little paint set up at my desk. and there weren't a lot of animation schools around when I mean there were art schools, but there weren't a lot of animation, you know, that I wanted to be a background painter, and they didn't really specialize background painting anywhere. But the union, the Screen Cartoonist Union, offered classes taught by Disney feature background painters. So I started taking classes at the union from people like Michael Korinsky was one of the instructors. Yeah. Serge Michaels, he was a big painter on Hunchback of Notre Dame. Christy Maltese. There were so many great painters. And they would teach like, here's how to paint Lion King grass, or here's how to paint stone texture. And so I was like, you know, getting into all that. And then a position opened up for a cleanup artist on, I think it was Road Rovers. And I started doing some character cleanup and then prop design. I got a prop design job on Hysteria in about 1997. And that's when I met well, I met Joe on Road Rovers. I met Jerry and Ewo and Scott and everybody around 1997. Well, Scott was on Road Rovers too, but Jerry Eisenberg was on my crew, on Scott's crew on Hysteria. So he would help me sometimes with my prop design. And then there was some times in the production where they would need help with background painting color, and they knew that I was more into the color than the black and white stuff. So anytime there was an opportunity for me to try my hand at background painting, they would give me an opportunity to do that. And so I got some background painting, some color comps and stuff done in Hysteria. And then I think Scott Gerald's got his next show was Static Shock. And so on Hysteria, we were still painting backgrounds traditionally, but on Static Shock, they wanted to switch to digital. And I was learning Photoshop on the side. And so he's like, you want to try some digital backgrounds? And it was a very like flat comic book style with just a simple outline, kind of flat fill kind of stuff. So it was pretty basic. And yeah, so we started doing that. And then shortly thereafter, he got, I think that's when he started doing the Scoobies, the vampire, Legend of the Vampire, and Monster in Mexico. Yeah, and all kind of steamrolled after that.
Well, it certainly sounds like you've had a great, journey into and both throughout your career, and it's really interesting because we get to hear so many different stories, and for you to know from such a young age that it was background design that you wanted to do, like that specific element was something that
Background painting,
really enjoyed.
background painting.
Yeah, sorry, background painting. Yeah, so it's great that you knew from such an early stage that that was the bit that you really did enjoy focusing on, and I love the story that you used to kind of rush home to watch the things your dad worked on. Do you remember what projects he did for Hanna-Barbera?
Oh yeah, let's see. You know what? I have a pile. I brought up a pile of some of his original backgrounds. So I will show you some of his.
Oh, thank you. That's
Oh,
maybe
wow.
you can guess. Maybe you can guess what show they're from. Let's see. Okay, so we'll keep it cool. All right. Okay, here's an example. This one right here.
Oh,
One of
is
my
that a
favorite shows.
Smurfs?
Yeah, it's from Smurf. An original Smurf background.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
So if I zoom up, maybe you can see some of the line work. Yeah, to me, this is like one of the holy grails of animation.
They're amazing.
Yeah, so he just did, yeah, it was just like a bunch of different, this is like inside one of the little houses. And here's I don't have that over, right? This has got a cell overlay. A castle. With the cell overlay. Yeah, so these are some of the things that inspired me to be a background painter. This is how they used to do it.
Oh.
Yeah, really cool. I guess this is a big castle episode. I'm not sure. It doesn't look like Gargamel's castle, but yeah, it's no tree.
Oh, that's lovely. I love how much depth is in all of them as well.
The atmosphere, yeah. Well, this is probably Gargamel's castle. You can see all the stone texture. And I don't even know if these were used or throwaways or how. No, they must have been used because they've got the little numbers on the back. So I love this one. Super fun. And then let's see, I've got some big ones too, some big pans. So those were 12 field that I showed you first. And these look like 1.5. Oh, this is a great one here. My organization isn't that great. Hold on. Yeah. This one's a little. This one you have to sell there.
Oh, wow. mean, there is just so much life in these as well. It's amazing.
Mm.
And they're only on screen for like how many seconds? So much work. And with this, it's like if they needed a day, you know, a color shift or something, you'd have to completely go in and repaint it. Yeah, these are 8 sheet pans. It's not a huge pan. It's not really pretty. And there's a little sunset.
The colouring of that is beautiful. And the
Yeah.
detail in the
Pretty.
background.
So a lot of Smurfs. This one, let's see if you can guess what that show this is from. Quickie Koala.
Oh.
Quickie Koala was also one of my favorites. I like the obscure ones that a lot of people don't really know about. Like Trollkins. Trollkins is always one of my favorite. Here's a Trollkins background. This one was done with FW inks.
Oh, I love all the
Instead of-
purple in that one.
Yeah, it's the colors, huh? They're so vibrant. No washes. Yeah. Oh. Let's see. Yeah. And then this one. So this was his very first gig at Hanna-Barbera. This was Heidi's song. Is it right side up? Yeah. Heidi's song. And his, I think Paul Julian was the art director. It has a little bit of that Paul Julian flavor. Yeah, and then let's see, what are some of the other ones he worked on? Gosh. He worked on a lot of stuff. He's had a pretty awesome career. Both of us have been very blessed.
Oh, I mean, I can just tell looking at all of that, it's just absolutely amazing. And it really is like an absolutely like legendary, iconic things from that era, and you know that's gonna go and
Oh,
last the
yeah.
test of time, which is amazing. And so obviously, like it is no wonder that you were so inspired to go down that path. Just seeing those, like, oh, even though I can't draw even like stick figures, I'm even wanting to take up some type of drawing now. But obviously, you know, with stuff like the Smurfs being so iconic, were there any other shows alongside that that just inspired you independently to go into it?
Oh, well, of course, all the Disney features. Some of the other ones he worked on, the Flintstones, Super Friends. I loved Super Friends, Richie Rich. Let's see what else it was. Oh, Shirt Tails was one of my absolute favorites. The Jetsons, 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo, Pound Puppies, Pac-Man, all those. I used to watch all those shows. Pup Named Scooby Doo, I really liked that one because it was like so different and so cartoony and for kids, you know. And then there's a couple favorites. He did a couple of spooky shows that weren't Scooby. There was the Halloween Tree that was done, and the Addams Family. So those have a little bit of that, you know,
that's lovely.
Scooby vibe. Yeah, and then I guess I started getting a little older, but he kept working on I think he ended up going over to well, he did Iron Giant. He did a lot of Iron Giant. I got some Iron Giant stuff. And he kind of moved out of the paint and kind of got in more into layout. So he did a lot of the junkyard scenes
Oh,
for
that's
Iron
gorgeous.
Giant. Yeah. But he would paint with a pencil. Yeah, I think he kind of at some point transitioned to layouts, background layouts instead of painting. Some more little, I think this is the outside of Hogarth's bedroom. And these are just, these aren't originals, these are copies. Forest. That's why I wanted to do the screen sharing thing, but I guess I can just hold these up.
It's lovely. There's so much style to everything, even down to the signage on the door. It all
Yeah.
just speaks volumes about the type of show, the type of medium. It's just
I love
This
the
is great.
light, like it all looks
This is the
so
original.
real because of how the light reflects.
Yeah, the lighting, because he was
Like
a
all the
painter, so
shadowing
he-
and things.
Mhm,
Like the
that's
one that
why
you
he
held
was-
up that was a corridor looked so real and it was a wall, but yet the shadows and
the
everything
lighting.
just made it feel so lifelike.
Yeah. Or the junkyard. And I think he was especially inspired because he was a child in the 40s, you know, this kind of took place around the time where he would have been like in the 50s, like a kid, you know, around Kogarth's age. So he's like putting in all the like the different details of the different cars that might be in the junkyard at the time, you know, 1940s cars, you know, the baby parts. So anyway, wanted to show off for my dad. He worked on a lot of like Tinkerbell too after that. So, which was really cool because when I was a kid, he did and I'll send you some of the drawings that he did. He had an idea for a cartoon starring me. It was called T and Me, and it was about this little girl who had a fairy friend, and the fairy would turn into like there was this one scene where she was walking with her walking home, and then a dog was going to attack her, and so the fairy turned into like a big bear and scared the dog away. You know, I don't know, it was just a cute little concept, and he did some really pretty watercolor drawings and some little cell setups and stuff. So then when he worked on Tinkerbell, it was kind of like, wow, how did that all come about? You know, like full circle in a way. He was able to realize kind of his idea, but in a different way. Yeah.
Oh, that's a really cute idea.
Mm.
Like, it would have been sweet to see that
Yes.
materialize because there's so many like series about like kind of the kid character and psychic, like Clifford the
Yeah.
Big Red Dog, like stuff like that. It's just stuff that I can remember growing up with. That I think it would have been great to add that in, but it's just so amazing to see that work and to hear about everything, which is just absolutely phenomenal. And I know you said that you were doing, background painting and stuff, but again, IMDb, lists times where you were maybe supervising that and doing other elements of animation.
Yeah.
Was doing different things always the plan, or were you very much along the line of you wanted to do background painting and that was as far as you wanted to take it, and other things kind of just cropped up, or was it always the plan to transition into other things?
My passion is background painting. That was my number one. I just would do anything that needed to be done on the show too, because it's super fun to be just part of the production. You know, I love just being like one of the creators of, you know, the artwork, and being part of a team with, you know, seeing like it all come together. So I would do anything that needed to be done, but I particularly like background painting the most. Yeah, and I'm not, you know, supervisor, art director, that's fun, but your art as an art director isn't on the screen, and I like seeing my stuff on the screen. So I like being in the trenches, you know, as an artist, a production artist, and I like turning things around. I like TV production rather than feature, because features you can work on the same thing for weeks or months, the same painting. With TV, you get to turn it around, like, you know, constantly just seeing something new, painting something new. So I like that fast pace.
That was really good. I think it's good that you know exactly really what you want, like you say, the type of that you enjoy doing in regards to, like you say, like you've been for TV, but also that you knew background painting was what you really enjoyed. What advice do you have for anybody going into animation? Do you think it helps to be able to refine it down that much so you know what you want to focus in on, or is it something that you learned kind of throughout the course of your career that you know what it is that you really like?
I think it's the same advice I would give anyone. I would give to someone who wants to get into animation is to follow your heart. Like really know what you know, follow your heart. Like what are your passions? What do you like to do? Because it's going to be a long road. It's going to be challenging, and it's going to be something, it's got to be something that you have to do. You know, it's not something almost that you just want to do. It's something that you have to do. It just calls you, you know, and you just have to do it. So also, like, the advice I would definitely give is whatever project that you work on, whatever studio you work for, try to leave it better than you found it, you know, like, just, you know, just throughout life, whatever you're doing, try to leave it better than you found it, you know. That's just good advice anywhere, but especially in animation too. I mean, you have a responsibility making cartoons for kids to, you know, to your audience, know who your audience is, be conscious and aware, you know, make good uplifting content, I think.
I love that so much, especially the idea and the concept of finding a calling. Because I think people would hope, I don't think I've had mine career-wise just yet, but in terms of passion-wise, there's some defining moments that do impact everything. Like, I think without the What's New Scooby Doo series and the theme song making such an impression on me as a child, remembering coming back from school and watching it, I don't think that we would be inspired to make this series, all
Oh,
these years later. So there's just so many defining moments with Scooby that we've had the pleasure of hearing so many. And so, do you have a particular defining moment with Scooby Doo that really sticks out to you now in hindsight?
oh, wow. I mean, I think every project that I worked on was near and dear to my heart. But the best ones were the ones when Mr. Barbera and Mr. Hanna were still around and Ewo was still around, and having them like right down the hall, and you know, it's like they're like still checking on, making sure that like it's up to par, you know, like, and everything would be run by them. And yeah, I think that those were probably, I mean, those were definitely the best times for me in animation. It was kind of like the golden time, really, like Joe and I were kind of talking about it. You know, it's not really like that anymore. Those people aren't around anymore. The ones that started the studios and came up with these original, you know, shows that we love so much. So now it's in the hands of, you know, the new artists, and you know, hopefully they have the same passion for the projects that we all did.
I mean, it
I don't
definitely
know.
was like a golden age. Like, just looking back at it, I mean, maybe it's easy for us to maybe look at it like that, because when you ask anyone what is the best of something, I think maybe like 9 times out of 10, the initial response is the one that you grew up watching, always. But just even now, like doing retrospective series on all the movies and the shows, everything from that era just still holds up so well, which is amazing. And like, speaking about that initial Joe interview, there was some discussions about balancing between What's New Scooby-Doo and the movies. And so all of the I think you worked on three of the earlier credits, which was Monster of Mexico, Legend of the Vampire, and What's New Scooby-Doo. Do you recall which one came first and how that initial meeting came about?
Well, definitely Vampire came first. Yeah. I remember them kind of talking about it when we were working on Static. And then yeah, we were getting really, really excited about it. But it was kind of the first time that they, I think since The Witches Ghost or Zombie Island, that you know, they'd come up with like a
The
new
last one would be
team.
Cyber Chase for that one.
Oh, Cyber Chase.
That was
Okay,
even the
yeah.
first one that Gray DeLisle was
Mhm.
Daphne in, and then it went to the original cast and then
Mhm.
back to like a new regime.
Yeah, that was, I think David Stoy maybe was the producer. So Scott Gerald was going to be the producer on the next couple projects, and Scott wanted to bring it back to as close to the original series as possible. So his idea for that was simplifying, you know, the characters, like no heavy shadows, no animated shadows on the characters, you know, some of the characters didn't have the whites in the eyes, you know, going back to like the original the original color. And yeah, so maybe like simplifying the backgrounds a little bit more, not so painterly, you know, over painted, like over rendered, just like a little more cartoony.
And on the
But
background for those projects, sorry, I was just going to ask, you know, these few movies have a real kind of almost like globe-trotting nature to them. For the backgrounds, to what extent was kind of the location or the country that they were visiting kind of dictating the color palette for the backgrounds?
yeah, right. So I remember like with The Legend of the Vampire, I always want to say Interview with the Vampire. That's not it. Legend of the Vampire. The palette was mostly yellows and purples, the complementary colors, yellows and purples. I remember talking to an artist by the name of Bill Proctor. He was one of the original background painters from Hanna-Barbera. And he was working with us doing layouts on that show to do that in a very small budget to do Legend of the Vampire. But we would talk about color, and we were looking at all the Australia stuff, and everything seemed to be kind of violet and yellow, more of those colors. And then like when we moved on to do the Monster of Mexico, the color palette shifted to be more of like blues and oranges, orange and blue, complementary colors. But also with Mexico bringing in, you know, the colors of Mexico. There's a lot of pink, you know, there's a lot of just the red, white, and green. Yeah, more colorful, I think, but also trying to get that temperature of the area too, which I think with the Interview, the Legend of the Vampire, it was more dusky. It was like Australia was like dusty. They were out at Ayers Rock mostly, so there was a lot of atmosphere like in the sky. And then in Monster of Mexico, it was more lush because there was jungle, you know. So yeah, definitely the color palette shifted for those.
Do you remember if there's a particular background for either one of those projects that you particularly enjoyed working on or was most proud of when it was finished?
Yes, I do. There was a painting for the vampire one that I don't know if it was actually used in the film, but it was used for reference. It was just a really big, vast downshot view, you know, landscape view. I'll send it to you. You can pop it up on the screen. It's really beautiful, and it really showcases like the temperature and the atmosphere. I also really enjoyed there was like this whole sequence in the opening of that where they're driving to Ayers Rock. They're driving through Australia, and the time shifts from day to like sunset, you know, to darker to night. So like when we were painting those backgrounds, we had to do like each one kind of a little bit more, you know, little dusk, you know, a little more sunset, a little darker. So that was really cool. And then all of the festival paintings were really fun. Yeah. And then the spooky, you know, vampire rock.
Yeah, all of that was so good, and I just love like because it even brings back memories watching it when you say it, because definitely I think the reason why I used to watch the Monster of Mexico so much in the summer is you do just get such a warm vibe from it. Like it almost heats you up to watch it because there is so much of that orange, yellow, but also there's lusciousness, not just in the greenery, but I think in the costume choices as well complement them quite as well, with Alejo wearing primarily green. It's just absolutely incredible to hear about. And we've mentioned that being it was almost like that limited era of those two movies that reunited the original cast coming off the back of all the Mook animation stuff. And it's just incredible to see that switch because we don't really have a definitive era now as such. Whereas back then you could definitively say, these are the Mook animations, these are the reunions, and then there's the What's New era. On a behind the scenes level, how much does that change in era affect work at all? I guess we had like a different president of Warner Animation as well at that point.
Oh
How
yeah,
did that affect things behind the scenes?
I think I don't know, also different producers. Every time you have a different producer, you have a different way of doing things. Than Chuck Sheets, or Tim Maltby or Joe Sitka. They all had their different ways of running their show. And yeah, so the big thing, like with interview legend, I keep saying that, Legend of the Vampire, Interview with the Vampire. That was one of the first times that we were doing digital backgrounds, right? And getting the overseas studios on board with that was, it didn't matter how much we painted, how good our paintings looked in the studio. When they would come back, they just didn't look right coming back from overseas, because they weren't really up to speed on how to use Photoshop yet, how to use the brushes correctly and how to use the textures correctly. So it was just a constant battle. It took a few years for them to finally, get up to speed and be able to match our backgrounds. So by the time we were doing What's New Scooby Doo, I think, I don't know, I think they were farming out to a lot more different studios. They did like a couple different studios were doing that. But yeah, it was just like, it was just a little different. That one, What's New Scooby Doo, just had so many different locations. And, it was like every episode was a completely different color palette. And it was super fun, but it was, it wasn't like working on a video where it's like you can, kind of just take it, through act A, B, and C, with the color script. It was there, I don't know, it was just a little bit shorter. But yeah, it was,
Imagine.
yeah.
This is good because I think one of the ones on a behind the scenes perspective anyway that stands out as a little bit of an outlier is, I suppose, Aloha Scooby Doo, because I do love that one. But I think that had quite a few different people behind the scenes as well. But that's again another really summary one that is always on the marathon playlist. And that credits you as a background paint supervisor. And for all you said that you prefer almost like the boots on the ground things where you can see your work tangibly on the screen, how was it to be a background supervisor on Aloha Scooby Doo?
Well, technically, I was background supervisor on the other ones. I just didn't get the screen credit. So that was just for screen credit. Yeah. The screen credit comes with a little bump in pay too. So that was nice. But I tried to get those. Yeah, sometimes they don't want to give you that credit because then they have to give you the extra pay.
Oh gosh.
So.
It was good that's out in the open up, because again, like, just all of that work is just so much an important part of making everything special, especially with that globetrotting nature that we were speaking about recently. Because I don't think there's one particular location where I'm like, Scooby didn't go there in this era. I kind of wish they did. And maybe if I'm being completely biased on both of my background accounts, maybe either UK based setting, or well, England, I should say, because Scotland kind of covered that, but also maybe Indian would have been fun. But is there a particular
yeah.
geographical location that you wish that the Scooby-Doo movies back then had gone in?
Well, I have some poster artwork that I did for some pitches that didn't go through. If you want, this is actually the original one for the Aloha Scooby Doo. It was originally called Curse of the Wiki Tiki.
Oh wow.
That's looking incredible.
So this one was the one for India, I believe. What Scooby Doo in the spirit of India? Yeah. See, there you go.
I
And
want
look at
that so much.
Yeah, that one's for you.
That is
Isn't that rad?
amazing.
Whatever
I know.
multiverse I need to go to where that was
I
produced, I
I
want to
think I
go
would like.
there.
I want to see it. I want to see them in India. I think that would be so cool. So cool. This one is The Riddle of the Sphinx. So this might have been
Oh,
Oh, this is Egypt, right?
yeah. Which is really lovely because there was an Egypt movie, obviously, with Where's My Mummy, but then there was the Egyptian, what am I thinking of, episode of What's New Scooby Doo.
Right. We kicked that idea around a few times. Okay, let's see. This one takes place in San Francisco, Scooby Doo and the Legend of the Haunted Hood, with the Golden Gate behind it. That one was never done. That one would be cool to see. But that was another, I think they did maybe a San Francisco. And then here's your London right here. The London Werewolf.
That is awesome. Oh, I love that. That little, well, that little Big Ben in the background.
The Little Big Ben.
Oh my gosh, wow.
But the color palette's very muted and gray, like, overcast.
Finally something that's very representative of the UK. Overcast and
Yeah.
rainy suits us pretty well.
Right?
But I will admit, something that I do love about that era is it did always feel like every episode or every movie was like going on holiday, because you got to go to a different place, and I almost compare it to like the holidays I had growing up, and that's somehow I kind of differentiate the ones that I like the most, the ones that I remember almost as fondly as like a family holiday or going away and kind of seeing sights
Aw.
but on the actual screen. So certainly something I loved about it. Is there a favorite movie that you have that you worked on for any particular reason? Like I said, for me, it's about the locations that they go to and how it feels like you're traveling with them. Is there something that really makes one of the movies stand out to you?
Well, I really love the Aloha Scooby Doo because I have a connection to Hawaii. I mean, I just that's a place, and the ocean. I've always lived by the ocean. I've the only sports trophy I've ever gotten was a surf trophy. I love surfing. I love the ocean. I love whales. I love Hawaii. Also, someplace I would bring my kids. While we were growing up. So working on that was really super fun. Yeah. So the tropical. I think this was the opening with the
Yeah,
hummingbird. The
where
hummingbird was just flying
birds
through
love
there.
you, say
Yeah.
aloha.
And then this was like, Honolulu is always kind of the place that I would go. So
Everything Hawaiian is, I've been obsessed with it since that initial Lilo and Stitch movie on the series, and
uh-huh.
but
So
it's
this
somewhere
was
that I've never
done.
been.
This is done, I think, right after Lilo and Stitch. So that might be why they wanted to do it, because it's like, it worked for them. But if you guys ever get a chance to go there, I highly recommend it.
It's on like my absolute that on Australia on my two dream locations. That is lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me just zoom through here because I have so many ones, and I'll just show you a couple more.
Yeah, like it's just amazing to see all of these. It's like, oh,
Oh, wow.
that's almost like the Reichenbach Falls.
Yeah, the
That's-
fall. I think the real estate. Oh, this was cool because you can see there was an artist by the name of Edgar Carlos who used to draw some of our layouts, and this is a layout for one of the
Yeah,
scenes.
I think
And
Sandra
then
Schwartz might have some of his artwork as well. If
then
memory
his is
serves
a
me.
tonal value of the same drawing. And so if we're lucky as painters, we'll get a tonal value to kind of help us with our lighting. Sometimes we just get a black and white drawing. Yeah, and then this is the painted version.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is pretty cool. And then I loved painting this one because it had the buzz. Baby buzz.
Go Harlow.
Go aloha. Yeah. Oh, I think this was like a what's new Scooby Doo logo we were trying to figure out.
Oh, wow.
the jungle canopy, jungle scene. A lot of greens. Yeah, that's it for that. So,
I mean, there's just so much because I'm really starting to almost get like I said, like multiversal envy for the versions of us that were there, like when all those kind of proof of concept locations came into fruition, just thinking about the great backgrounds that would have happened with those different locations. And I guess springboarding off of that a little bit, in terms of the concepts that you did show us through like the India setting, the London setting, was that very much just an instance of, someone would say, let's have some ideas out there on what we can do next. Here's your proof of concepts, and some would go through, some wouldn't, or, like how would those initial plans have gone into fruition?
well, I think after Vampire and Monster of Mexico were done, and they were like, wow, we can do these, this is like, we're onto something here, we're going to keep going with these. We had the series, they wanted to do more videos, so they just needed more ideas, so they usually go to the writers, the producers and the writers, and then sometimes the producers will just hire the artists to draw some concepts. They'll pick the ones they like, and then they'll come to the painters and say, paint these up, we need them by tomorrow. And then they pitch them, like if they get a pitch with Sander or something, it's like, our pitch is tomorrow, quick, and just get all this artwork done. And
The
then
only thing I'm lacking now is like a whole array of Del Chillman spin-off art. That would have been just so great to see. That's the one thing that every Scooby Doo
Yeah.
movie, apart from those
I
things,
know.
are like.
I pulled my favorite painting from that show. This was my favorite one.
Oh,
And it wasn't even on screen for very long, but he had like little birds flying around here. It was cool. I still like that one. That's still one of my favorites. And yeah, you were asking if there were any backgrounds that I'd like to see on my site, that are, I just put more like the relevant kind of like recent stuff, but I did some really cool castle paintings I'd like to have.
oh, that's lovely.
The digital, I gotta find the digital versions of them. But that's different show. That we weren't even talking about the show last time when it came out. We were supposed to be talking about Chill Out Scooby Doo, and then we ended up. I've got so much stuff from Loch Ness, but I won't even get into it right now. We'll have to do that another time.
Oh no, there could honestly there needs to be
good stuff.
a whole Loch Ness episode. The only thing now is, because this is so close to Valentine's Day, I think a Valentine's Day Scooby would have been a really good concept to throw around there as well. And I know the writer of Aloha Scooby Doo, I think it was Temple Matthews, spoke about a Rio de Janeiro concept. Was that ever drawn up at all, or was that kind of just early stages?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think I had any involvement with the Rio de Janeiro one. Maybe somebody did. I'd like to see it done. It'd be like Carnival, maybe.
That would be wonderful. Oh, I love that. There's just so much. Like if it was up to me, I think that era would just still be going on today. But there is still some good stuff that they are producing. Like I quite liked one of the new ones that they did, Trick or Treat Scooby Doo, and we did recently review Scooby Doo and the Gourmet Ghost, which you're credited on as well. From either, I mean, we've spoken about different producers and directors, but from say maybe a technological standpoint, are there any differences in your work, say, on the recent Scooby Doo's versus, Legend of the Vampire, Monster of Mexico at all?
Yeah. Well, with Guess Who Scooby Doo, they wanted it really loose. So they had a specific style in mind. That Nadia Verbanova, she was the art director on that, and she came up with the style. And so it was just like a looser, more painterly style. And I think it worked really well for that series because we had a lot of episodes to do in a very short amount of time. So it was just a matter of like getting them done. But with Gourmet Ghost, that was a video. So we had more time to render the paintings. That was a lot more like technical looking. episode or video.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I suppose, to get into the process of wrapping things up on the Scooby front, obviously there's been such a weird time at the moment with Warner Brothers and animation. Like, even like before everything, before this even took place, there's just been so many developments with like the Coyote versus Acme situation. And in the last interview we did, you mentioned something about visual developing on a new Scooby. And there's just so much on the rumor mill going around. But would you say that the future of Scooby is overall looking quite bright behind the scenes, or is there still maybe a bit of uncertainty going on?
I think that I think that there will be more Scoobies in the future. I don't know if it's going to be the Gremlin crossover. I don't know. That could be interesting. But yeah, I think that there will be more Scoobies in the future. So yeah, but I can't say more than that.
Well, we're certainly very hopeful. I think, like you said, at the minute we're just hearing about things that were behind the scenes and cancelled and that sort of thing. But I'm sure for every project we hear cancelled, there's something incredible that we aren't hearing about that we have to look forward to. So I'm sure there's lots of positivity on the horizon. I appreciate, like you said, a lot of that's probably things you can't talk about. But in terms of the work that you have coming up in the future, are you working on any projects, either Scooby or non-Scooby, that you are able to speak about?
Well, I'm working mostly on personal projects right now, which are pretty fulfilling in a different way. Got some children's books in the works, and I'm getting ready to head down to Mexico week after next with some biologists, and we're going to be studying gray whales up close and personal, and doing some tagging some baby sea turtles and just doing some ecology work, which is kind of like going back to my college days. But I'm looking forward to how I'm inspired from that trip and how I can use my artwork to somehow bring awareness to, saving our oceans. And I'm really inspired by Stephen Hillenburg from SpongeBob, actually, because I'm working with some people right now who volunteered with him years ago in Dana Point, California, at the Marine Mammal Institute, and they were talking about how he was getting ready to pitch the show, SpongeBob, but he was like a big marine biologist, and he wanted to do something to bring awareness to the oceans. And so I really respect him for that, and would like to try to do, not like that, but try to do something to help, bring awareness to saving our whales, saving our oceans. It's very important for our whole Earth.
It certainly is.
The ocean to the world.
I mean, it certainly is. And I think, like you're saying there, that you're heading to somewhere that you've actually done the artwork for. I guess I'm throwing kind of a question in the middle when we're meant to be wrapping up here, but how do you find it kind of, do you think, firstly, I guess it's a two-part question. Do you think that traveling does help you to create these places? And also, have you ever kind of struggled trying to imagine and create backgrounds for a place that you've never been to?
Yes, and yes, exactly that. If you've been to Scotland, if you've been to Hawaii, you know what I mean? It's like you can tap into that, like that memory, and it comes through in your painting, But when you're just kind of looking at reference and you've never really, had that personal experience, you can be inspired by a photo, but it's a little bit different when you're, reliving that experience in your, in your being, So I think it's important to travel.
It must definitely take a positive eye as well, a really artistic eye, because for all I can think about somewhere like Hawaii and Mexico and think that they're so amazing because I'm not familiar with it, there's also like so many things like, again, I like Scotland, but sometimes living in the UK, I can just step outside and I'm like, this place is miserable. There's nothing but grey everywhere, there's blue everywhere. And yet watching something like the Loch Ness Monster movie, I'm like, wow, that's stunning. So there must be some type of like, just a way that I'm very jealous about how background painters and animators in general can just view the world is just fabulous.
See, I was almost thinking that it puts a positive spin on everything because I agree with you. Normally, you'd look at the weather outside and be like, "Oh, it's raining again," for like the 60th day in a row. This is miserable. But then looking at the concept art for the werewolf one in London, I was looking at the grey mist behind and the fog and being like, "Oh my gosh, like that looks so mystical and exciting." And it's like, no,
Yeah.
this is the weather you complain about every day. But something about it in animation just makes it
so
seem
good.
so exciting and
It's
intriguing.
the fresh, yeah, it's the fresh eyes, seeing it through fresh eyes,
Yeah.
But I think, like with the Highlands of Scotland, I mean, it is beautiful, and I don't know, artists do have a tendency, like I don't know if all artists do, but I definitely try to see the beauty in everything, I always look at everything with an artistic eye, and yeah, I think like it all, even England, I mean, gosh, when I was there, it was sunny. So
Oh god.
I must have been there like that weekend.
I must admit, today was our first day of sun, I think, this year. And so
Oh.
seeing some of the artwork that you'd done that was on the beach and things like that, today was the first like day of, okay, there's going to be bright like summer ahead eventually when we get
Gonna warm
there.
up.
So we just started to feel all those warm positive feelings, and then to see all the artwork that you did in the summer and the beach certainly was like helping fuel that really positive feeling of that we're actually getting into the year now and things are going to start getting better. So in terms
Aw.
of kind of the future and a positive outlook for the rest of the year, where's the best place for people to keep up with the work and the projects that you are doing?
I think just go to my Instagram. Tristin paints a lot. Yeah, and I post stuff up there whenever new stuff comes along. So every once in a while I'll update. Yeah, it's a good place.
That is wonderful. I'll leave that linked in the description down below. Just amazing. Please make sure to go follow that. But yeah, that does conclude all of the questions that we had for you today. Just thank you so much for coming on and being so generous
you
with
for
your
having
time,
me.
because it's just been absolutely incredible talking with you today and just seeing things that have just honestly blown my mind. I'm not gonna stop thinking about that Scooby Doo India movie for the rest of my life. So
I can guarantee when you're editing this, you're going to pause it on that concept and really break it down because there seemed to be so much involved in it. I'm sure I saw a snake, an elephant, like there's
And
just
the
so
eight
many
arms.
things.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
going to lead me down the road of fan fiction, and I just know it is. So people will probably be treated to whatever monstrosity I come up with behind the scenes. But yeah, hopefully it isn't too bad. But yeah, thank you so much for that.
Anytime. I'll send you some of the files too. So
Thank you.
Thank
That
I'll
is
send
you.
you that one.
amazing. Hopefully I can edit that in as well. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone for watching. If you do want to see more, then please like,
Okay.
comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.